Hi Laura, it's Thursday and I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit creepy that your last video was about London when the last two books I finished reading were set in London. But I actually wanted to do a video entirely based on yours because, as you might know or might not know, I have a friend living in London and I wanted to ask him about the things you suggested in your last video, but turns out he hasn't done any of them, so it would have been a very boring video. So I decided to do something else. Of course, I also stumbled upon something on the internet, which was a list of the favorite books of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier cast, and as you know, I'm a Sebastian Stan, and I have to admit that I don't know a lot of the books he recommended, but one of his favorite books is The Catcher in the Rye, and I know that you feel my pain. I just don't know why every actor loves this book so much. But this made me think back to your video about books you really don't want to read, and I thought I would talk about books I just couldn't finish. Have fun with my anti-recommendations, I guess. The first one kind of refers back to the house tour you mentioned in your video. It's this one. It says something like the track or the trail, the trace of the books, I don't really know. And I bought it because of the cover, because it looks beautiful, and also because on the back it says it's a magical detective novel set in the Victorian London, and I thought that it sounded great. But I only read about 50 to 100 pages because it was about these people trying to find a specific page of a certain book in the London Underground, and they had magical powers when they touched their soul book, and it was just a very weird story and it just wasn't for me, so I got bored and quit reading. Okay, next I have two books, and I know that people say don't judge a book by its cover, but I think you should add don't judge a book by the person recommending it to you, because I had to read them for school and I really didn't like the teacher because she kept saying things to me that you shouldn't say to a student, and also she was convinced that she's dead and that we're all dead and that we're all ghosts and that we aren't really living in reality. So I didn't trust her instinct about books, but I actually think that these books aren't too bad, but I never finished them. But for this one, I think it's okay that I never finished reading, because it says that it is an unfinished novel, and why should I finish reading when the writer didn't even finish writing? I think that's fair. For this one, I'll make it short because it's a short book. It's 100 pages, it's an essay about moral and ethics, and I just have a problem with philosophical books because he could have said what he was trying to say in like 20 pages instead of 100, and I had to read parts of it for university, and it is okay for that, but I didn't finish it because it is just a lot of intellectual snobbery. So let's move on to the next. Okay, this one is really ironic because this was given to me as a gift because I won a poetry slam. So they gave this to me for writing good poetry, and this is literally the worst poetry I ever read. So I don't want to talk about it. I didn't like it. It is nice that I won something, but it was a bit ironic saying that they like my poetry and then giving me this. But talking about poetry, this is the next book. The author is called Andy Strauss. I've read his first book and about half of this one, and I love him. He's an amazing stage poet. He writes very, very weird stories, but I read about 1.5 of his books and you kind of go like, okay, your mind is weird, you write weird stories, I got it, can you just stop now? So it really isn't necessary to read so many of his stories because they are fun and they are weird and they are new, but it just started to bore me. And in the end, I will break someone's heart, and this is a very controversial opinion, I know this, but I didn't finish this book. I never finished it. I actually was planning on buying all 4 of the series because I like the idea of an artist living with the communist kangaroo, but I can't even tell you why. I enjoyed the stories, but I just never finished it. Okay, I actually don't know where this clip is going to be in the video, but I am editing and I noticed that I have a minute left, so I can tell you that it breaks my heart that I don't have enough time to talk about my week, because honestly, I have had one of the wildest, most exciting, eventful, exhausting weeks I've had in probably a year, and I would love to tell you everything about it, but I can't fit everything in the video, so I decided to talk about none of the things instead of some of the things. That's it for today, and I wanted to add that I am tracking my package with Hank's books, and they should arrive here by next week, so maybe we can start reading them next week. And until then, Laura, I wish you a great rest of the week, and I will see you again on Tuesday.